Hello and Namaskar. I am Divya Bidlani, past Vice President of Rotaract Club of Noida Youth, RID 3012. It is indeed my greatest pleasure to extend to you all our warmest welcome to Aarambh, Global Rotaract Conference brought to you by Rotaract Club of Noida Youth. Aarambh, the onset of global opportunities, aims to cultivate global partnership through engaging sessions over the span of its journey. Members of our organizing committee, including both our dear Rotaractors and Rotarians, have put us a great deal of their efforts, time, and dedication in bringing the events virtually to all of us. The wonderful thing about Aarambh is the international perspective that it brings with it, through the participation of our members from all across the world. It is our absolute privilege to have Mr. Devin D. Thorpe as our honorary guest for today's event. An author, motivational speaker, and Forbes columnist covering social entrepreneurship and impact investment, also happens to be a keynote speaker at United Nations. We would love to hear from the man himself, but there's something really fascinating about Devin that I would like for all of you to know. Mr. Devin has had an interesting journey from being the Chief Financial Officer of the multinational food and beverage company, Monavi, to the great concoct of being a new media journalist, author, motivational speaker, and the social reformer, which I would like to call him as, that he is today. Our guest of honor also happens to be a part of the State Senate Committee of the Utah. Devin has strived with utmost passion and dedication to build a movement to change the world. Channelizing the idealism of his youth, championing social good with the loving support of his wife, Gail, Devin believes in leaving a mark on the world, which also, by the way, happens to be the theme for our session today. Social change unites all the sections of the society, and with that belief, Devin, in his exemplary ways, has shown to the world how to add profit by adding purpose and how to do successful crowdfunding for social good. I could go on endlessly mentioning about Mr. Devin, but I would just conclude by saying that this wonderful human has been our very own messiah in times of social dismay, standing by millions of people and giving them a voice. Before we proceed further, there's something I would like to mention. Polio remains an endemic in a lot of countries. Until poliovirus transmission is interrupted in these countries, all countries are at a risk of importation of polio, especially vulnerable countries with weak public health and immunization services and travel or trade links to endemic countries. There are little kids all across the world under 5 years of age who are suffering from polio, and which has caused them irreversible paralysis, usually in their legs. As per WHO, among these paralyzed, at least 5 to 10% of these kids die when their breathing muscles collapse or become immobilized. But you can help bring a change. Through Aarambh, we are hoping to raise funds to ensure that no child in the world is disabled by polio. In that hope, we request you all to join us in our mission, support, and participate in the history, because we will together create a change here. And we are this close to doing that. Do visit our website, www.rotaractclubofnoidayouth.org, for further details. You may also mention or refer to the details in the chat box given in the window below. Moving further, and without further ado, I would like to invite Devin, who is here to talk about leaving a mark on the world. All members and participants, including me, have been eagerly waiting to hear you out, sir. I request all the participants to please mute yourself. We would further request to reserve your questions till the end of the presentation. We have a round specially dedicated to take up those questions, and we'll have that in a while. Devin, if you may please take forward from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Divya. It's an honor to be here. I am almost exactly on the opposite side of the planet from where you are, Divya, and it's an honor to be here from so far away, to be with you.
It's an absolute honor for us too, sir.
I am grateful to Dr. Nishal Pandey, who extended the invitation for me to participate. I recognize and thank him for the opportunity this morning. I would like to share some slides with you, and so I think I need to ask the Zoom host to authorize me to do that. There we go. It is a pleasure to be here this morning, or this evening, both. I want to talk a little bit about the concept of deep optimism, because it is so essential to having the impact we want to have in the world. As you can see in this image, there are 4 glasses of water, each more full than the last. In America, we have a saying that perhaps you'll recognize, that some people see a glass as half full and some see a glass as half empty. What I have seen throughout my career working with entrepreneurs and with social entrepreneurs who seek especially to solve social problems, is that they see all the glasses as full, even when the glasses are empty. And this confused me for a long time. I thought there was a sort of entrepreneurial psychosis, an entrepreneurial delusion that was required. And then I figured it out. Entrepreneurs don't see a glass as full because they delude themselves. They see the glass as full because they know where to get the water. And that is, I think, a meaningful distinction. So I want to talk a little bit about how your optimism will influence your ability to solve the world's big problems. Before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit more about myself. In this photo, it's a little bit hard to see me, but I'm the hobbit on the right in this photo. So I have some tall friends. When I was young, when I was very young, when I was about 11 years old, so this was back in 1976, when you were all just not even born. There was a reservoir, a dam that failed. And you can see in the small photo, the dam failing, and it actually failed the very first time that the reservoir behind the dam was filled. And as you can see in the bigger photo that was taken quite recently, the dam has never been repaired. And part of the reason for that is the dam failed because the dam was fine. The geology actually was the problem and not the construction of the dam. And so they couldn't rebuild it. But the failure of the dam left the town of Rexburg, Idaho, here in the United States. It's a small town of about 13,000 people, but it left the town devastated. About 80% of the structures in that town were damaged or destroyed by the flood, and about 13 people were killed in the flood. It was really devastating. So that summer, my father invited me to join a group of people who visited this town to help people clean up their homes, to dig the muck and mud out of the homes in that town. And as an 11-year-old kid, I thought that sounded like fun, so I accepted the invitation. And we got on buses about 2 o'clock in the morning and rode through the night and arrived in Rexburg to help clean up the homes at about dawn, so just as the day was starting. We worked all day until it got dark, and then we got back on the buses and came home. Recently, I returned to Rexburg and looked for the statue that I was sure would be built in my honor, and I could not find it. It turns out they did not actually build the statue that I had hoped. At the time when I was young, I really felt like I had made a big difference. As I reflect on my role that day, I was so young and so small, I was probably more in the way than I was able to help. But I didn't appreciate that at the time. I figured that I had done a great service. And I allowed that belief to change my life because I vowed that I would never miss an opportunity to serve other people. Now, I will admit that I, over the years, have missed many opportunities to serve people, but I did actually serve. So I went on to have a successful finance career, and that did give me the opportunity to travel around the world, sometimes on private planes. But when I got fired from the best job that I'd ever had, I channeled that enthusiasm of my youth and began to focus on opportunities to serve other people and do more good in the world. And you can see in some of these photos, I was visiting India, but I've spent a lot of time traveling around the world, helping and serving other people over the last decade or so. And now I'm running for a seat in the United States Congress. And I hope to continue my work to serve other people and help other people in that role. But let me talk a little bit more about deep optimism. Deep optimism is the patience to find and implement solutions to big problems. I want to encourage all of you to develop that sense of deep optimism, to look around you and identify big problems that you see and work to identify solutions and implement solutions to those big problems. I recently had the opportunity to visit with Bill Gates and Rotary International President Rasin. And this was not long before President Rasin's home country was devastated by a massive hurricane, and he led the national effort to help the recovery as one of the prominent citizens of his country, the Bahamas. But I want to share this clip because we'll focus on what Bill Gates says is his superpower and what we can learn from Bill Gates.
A few years ago, you wrote about superpowers in your annual letter. What is your superpower?
Well, if I have one, it has something to do with optimism about scientific innovation and being able to gather teams of people, whether it's, we talked about disease modeling, where there's, it's a whole deep expertise to help us predict where we're not getting coverage, what we need to do, or people who know about vaccine manufacturing or running big trials. And so my experience at Microsoft was assembling teams of engineers and understanding what was on track, off track, being patient for things that in that case usually took 5 or 6 years. And in the world of medicine, unfortunately, it's like 10 years. The HIV vaccine, between when people started working on it and when we'll finally have one, that will have been almost 25 years. So the patience required, the need to have multiple strategies. So it's there in pushing for innovation, seeing the opportunity of innovation.
So it's interesting that Bill Gates talks about patience and optimism as some of the keys to his success. He talks about the years required to achieve progress. And I really want to emphasize that you are all young and you have entire lifetimes ahead of you to have impact, change the world. And I want you to balance your enthusiasm with and your optimism with patience, because that will really be a superpower for you if you are patient and keep trying. We'll talk more about that throughout our discussion today, but of course, Bill Gates is one of the most successful people on the planet. He's now in his second career focused on changing the world. And the reality is, of course, he's having perhaps more impact than anyone else on the planet in solving some of the world's biggest challenges, especially around global health. One of the keys to changing the world is repeated effort. Every time you attempt something, you increase your ability to have impact. You get better at it, right? Practice makes perfect is a phrase we use a lot in the United States. It's not that the nature of the thing we're doing changes. It is that our ability to do that task gets better. And that is true even of this super impactful, super important principle of changing the world. And one of the people that taught me this is a fellow by the name of Bill Drayton. And Bill Drayton isn't as famous as Bill Gates, but Bill is one of the most influential social entrepreneurs, really one of the most influential people on the planet. He, 30 years ago, almost 40 years ago now, he organized a nonprofit organization called Ashoka that sponsors social entrepreneurs and gives them money and support to help them change the world. And so not only he, but all of the people he has supported over the years have been out changing the world, making a difference. And so he's really to what he says in this little Q&A snippet I'll share. What is your superpower?
So one looks at roots. I had two parents who did crazy things when they were 19. And so they had in them a comfort with me doing things, and they were supportive. And I grew up in Manhattan. And so there was no station wagon prison. There was a free bus and subway pass once you were allowed to cross the street. And it was the time of the civil rights movement. And I had a principle, I couldn't stand all this memorization stuff. And so I didn't do it very much. Loved history and geography, but math and French, please. And you can tell I'm not built for contact sport. I'm always the crashie, which limits my enthusiasm for it. So I started a newspaper, and it became a newspaper that grew and grew and grew once I was able to buy a mimeograph machine, which I bet you very few people have any idea what that technology is.
I'm married to a school teacher. I'm very familiar with it.
Well, that was open sesame for me. And, I had a principal who I learned many years later. He prevented conflict. He reassured, even my parents needed reassurance. And that was just a huge gift. So we all have to understand the roots of this. And, I was given the gift of being able to imagine and go and do things and build things. And every time you do that, you get better at it, and you're able to give at a bigger level and help more people grow more. This is very contagious.
So you see, he started at a young age learning how to change the world, and he practiced at it and became one of the most influential change agents on the planet, having empowered hundreds of other people to have impact around the world. Many of them, of course, in whatever country you're in, and I'm sure that there are many in India have come through his program, have changed the world. And he has spent a lot of time in India and has shared stories with me of his time in India. Moving on, I want to talk about the power of just getting started. One of the women I admire most in the world is a woman who started an organization called the Campaign for Female Education. And I want to share with you a little vignette I put together of how she started this organization and how it has grown. My guess is most of you haven't heard of it. She operates primarily on the continent of Africa, but it's really an amazing story.
Everything changed when she got there. Ann Cotton was studying in Cambridge. She wanted to know why so few girls were attending school in Zimbabwe. There were 7 boys for every girl in school. She'd repeatedly heard that parents didn't want to send their girls to school. Then in 1991, she traveled to Zimbabwe. When she talked to parents, she learned they did want to educate their girls. The problem was money. They didn't have enough money to send all their children to school. Forced to choose, they sent their boys, who had better prospects for work. She returned to Cambridge an activist. No one believed her. She had to go it alone. She held bake sales to raise the money to send 32 girls to school in Zimbabwe. The girls prospered and Anne grew the program. She called her organization the Campaign for Female Education, or CAMFED. CAMFED has now directly supported the education of 1.4 million children in 5 countries in Africa. What if she had never gone? Learn more at bit.ly/CottonOnForbes.
It's just amazing to me to think about the impact she had because she started. And I want to encourage you to not be afraid to start. But your first venture is not likely to grow in success like hers did. I don't want you to be discouraged. Like these pigs trying to jump across the sofa, right? It's not likely that your first attempt will be successful, and your second may not be successful. Your third may not be successful, but I want you to continue to try to change the world. And you will find, as you look back on your repeated efforts, that you're getting better and more impactful every time, and that your success really is happening and growing. I learned from a friend in this space that you really can learn to be more resilient. And he teaches people to be resilient by using a very specific strategy. And I want to encourage you to try this today. I realize that the day in India, and so most of you, I think, are participating in India, but wherever you are, I want you to try at least once to fail at something today. And an easy way to do this is to ask someone to help you do something that they will refuse to do. So you might ask someone to give you a lot of money to start your nonprofit. You might ask someone to carry you or to carry your stuff a great distance. You figure out what makes sense for you. I want you to respect the context we're in of a global pandemic. So maybe it's a phone request you make, maybe it's some other thing you do on social media, but I want you to find a way to fail today. And I know that's going to be hard, and I can't hold you accountable and ask you to come back and do it. But I want you to understand that you will survive failure. That there will be, after you fail, there will be opportunities for you to do more good and not be too discouraged by your failures. So go fail at something today and then succeed at something tomorrow. I want to make the point that young Rotarians like you really do change the world. Rotaractors like you really do change the world. I want to share the story of a young woman who is a Rotary Peace Fellow. And how she changed the world during the incredible refugee crisis in Europe a few years ago.
She thought the images weren't fair. When Ann Care Reichert saw the photos in the media of some of the 1.1 million refugees arriving in Germany, she said, "We need to stop talking about refugees and start talking with refugees instead." Anne met a refugee named Mohammed who had been a programmer. He explained that he couldn't program because he didn't have a computer. She knew that 43,000 IT jobs were open in Germany, so she decided to launch the Ready School of Digital Integration to teach them coding skills. In 1 year, she launched her nonprofit school and has already trained dozens of students. Mark Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan even visited the school and geeked out with the students. The program is working. Her students even created an app called Bureaucrazy to help refugees navigate the bureaucracy. Rotary's John Hugo said, "If we don't act now to build the conditions for peace, then events that undermine it will only increase."
She really is an inspiration, and her impact has saved who knows how many lives and created so much hope and opportunity for immigrants in Germany that I hope you take away a sense that you already, right now, this minute, have the ability to make a difference and change the world. I want you to channel your own optimism, to focus it and truly believe that you can change the world. And I want you not only to believe that you can, but I want you to join me now in promising that you will. Remember that the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. So with that thought, I want you to join me now and promise. So I want you to say this out loud wherever you are, and don't worry whether your microphone is on or off. Just say it with me. But I want you all to take this oath with me. We'll take it 4 times. I want you to repeat with me, "I will change the world," but each time we'll emphasize a different word, okay? We'll say it 4 times. So first we'll emphasize the word I. So say it with me. I will change the world. Now emphasize will. I will change the world. I will change the world. And I will change the world. I want you to recognize that honestly and truly, you will change the world. The entire world will change because of you. Thank you very, very much for the opportunity to visit with you. I am happy to take questions until you are tired of me.
Thank you, Devin, for the amazing talk. It was very uplifting and greatly moving. I'm sure with your great stories, you've inspired many of us. If you may proceed, just a second, I'm sorry, there's some technical issue. If you may permit, I would like to proceed with the question and answer round.
Please.
Okay, so one of our participants wanted to ask you, what do you think has been your mark on the world?
Boy, that is a great question and a fair one for sure. I have tried to help change the world in lots of ways. One of my consistent long-term efforts over the last 8 years, and Divya, you talked about polio eradication. And polio eradication is a story that really begins about, well, more than 40 years ago with Rotary. Rotary clubs in Australia began visiting Rotary clubs in the Philippines and began immunizing kids in the Philippines to help stem the spread of polio there. And as this began to happen, over 40 years ago, independent Rotarians, ordinary Rotarians, the most ordinary, club presidents, not global leaders in Rotary, individual Rotarians, began talking about how Rotary could eradicate polio. More than 40 years ago. It wasn't their job. We're not talking about Rotary International Presidents we're talking about ordinary Rotarians said, you know, Rotary could do this. Sorry for getting a little emotional. But I want you to think about that. This was not a top-down initiative. But these Rotary clubs in Australia and the Philippines began getting traction, and they began to recognize that they were eradicating polio in the country of the Philippines. And they began to see the potential, they demonstrate the potential for Rotary to do this internationally. And an Australian Rotarian was elected to the Rotary International Board. His name is, no, I'm trying to think, no, what was his name? I'm forgetting his name. But he was invited to join the Rotary International Board, and he began to lobby for this. And I spoke with a former Rotary International president about this experience. He was, Raja Sabu was the president of Rotary International, I think in 1981. And he's an amazing, amazing guy. I hope he's still alive. I haven't kept in touch with him, but he and I met in 2014. And he was a fairly old, but very healthy gentleman at the time. So I hope he's still well. Let me know if you know. But he was there as president to begin the discussion of having Rotary tackle this problem. And in 1985, Rotary made the official decision to tackle the eradication of polio as a global Rotary effort, and began that effort officially in 1988, so 32 years ago. At the time, there were 350,000 cases of polio each year. Last year, there were just about 300 cases. So we have reduced the number of cases by 99.99%. It is a persistent problem, but the number of people impacted is tiny compared to what it once was. And that's because of the work of Rotary. And when I joined Rotary just about 8 or 9 years ago, I recognized the little role I could play in that effort. And it has been one of the things that I've worked on hard in Rotary, is to expand the attention, to encourage people to get involved. And I want to encourage all of you to play a role and not be discouraged. Whether polio eradication takes 3 more years or 30 more years, we need your help to do that. And Divya did a brilliant job of explaining the importance of that effort. Children die from polio. Many are left paralyzed. And we need to stop this brutal, brutal disease, and we can. It has been eradicated from countries around the world. I visited India in 2014 when the World Health Organization officially declared India polio-free. The last case of polio, as you know, in India was in January 2011, when a little girl was the last one afflicted with polio. We can do that globally. If we can eliminate polio from the entire continent of Africa, the entire continent of North and South, continents of North and South America, if we can eradicate polio across Europe, and if we can eradicate polio in India, we can eradicate polio everywhere. So that's one way that I have tried to have an impact on the world.
I'm sure that's great impact, and I'm sure many countries, including India, have been really thankful for people like you who actually attempted to do that and been very successful at it. So 2 of our participants have requested for a similar question. They want to know that, so Devin, you were talking about being optimistic, which is the most important key. So they want to know that, you know, there are times where you feel that your efforts are repeatedly futile. They seem having no way. So in that case, how do you start with the optimistic view in life, and how do you hold on to it?
Boy, that is a great, great question. And it is a deeply personal one. It's probably a little bit different for each person. But I want you to remember the stories that I told you and the people we talked about today as examples. I want you to remember that Bill Gates is not exceptional because of where he was born or how he was born or by his gifts. When you talk to Bill Gates, I'm sorry, he seems like the most ordinary guy you'll ever meet. He is exceptional because of what he has done and what he has accomplished. And he got there just by doing it. I'll tell you another story to try and make the point. There is a woman by the name of Suzanne Ray. She's also from Australia. I don't mean to share only stories of Australia, but Suzanne is, she was a widow. She was about 70 years old. She's a polio survivor. She had polio as a little girl. And when her husband died, she was looking to find new meaning in her life. She has no remarkable abilities. I have heard her speak. She's not a remarkable speaker. I have heard her, I read what she's written. She's not a remarkable writer. Obviously, as a polio survivor, she can't run fast. She doesn't have extraordinary physical abilities. But at age 70, she decided she wanted to do something, and she began organizing an effort within Rotary to raise more money for polio. And she called it the world's greatest meal to end polio. It's kind of a clumsy name, and it was kind of a clumsy effort. And it's unimpressive and not very strategic. But I promise you that because of this effort, I have no doubt, because of her efforts on promoting the effort to raise more money for polio, that she has helped raise millions and millions of US dollars for the fight against polio with her efforts. Money that would not have been raised, money that would not have helped people fight polio if she hadn't done it. And she's been doing it now for nearly a decade. And so she's now a very old woman. She's probably 80 years old now, or very nearly 80. And yet she keeps on doing this all around the world. She travels all around the world helping people raise money to fight polio. And this is the thing I want to convey to all of you. You don't have to be amazing to do this. She has become amazing to me only because she did this. And she has no special talent. Any of you can change the world. All of you have something that makes you great, something that makes you special. You have a superpower. And you can change the world. Just remember the stories. Remember Anne Care Riker, just a young woman in Germany who said, you know what, we got 1 million refugees coming in, we got to help. So she went to work and did something and made a difference. I want you to think about all these people we've talked about and just start changing the world. You can. You can. I promise you, you can make a difference.
That's a remarkable story. But there's a follow-up question on this, which I would like to know. So I could have great optimism. I could be very enthusiastic about what I want to do. And I could go on to do at any age. But, do you think only these qualities suffice for actually making some substantial change in the world? Speaking from someone's shoes who would not have financial resources to back that optimism, enthusiasm, how do you think the person should go about that in that particular situation?
Just start. Just start. There's nothing more powerful than actually starting. I want to encourage you to plan less and do more. And the reason is you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish and what you will learn from a little bit of doing. And after you do, you can return to the planning cycle and say, okay, what did we learn from our first effort at doing? And then move back to doing, right? So there's a constant cycle between planning and doing, reflecting and doing. And as you do that, you will see that your impact will grow, your ability to execute will grow. I will point out that one of the secrets is to find partners. And sometimes it's a temporary partner, sometimes it's a permanent partner. Sometimes it's a short-term partner just for a short project. Sometimes it's a long-term partner, and sometimes short-term partners become long-term partners. Start wherever you are, identify a problem you would like to have solved, and work on solving it. And it really doesn't matter how big the problem is, but figure out one way you can help alleviate that problem, reduce that problem, solve that problem, and then do something. That's the trick.
Thank you for your tricks and tips. So there's someone amongst us, Omkar Devadwar, who is emphasized on asking you this question. He wants to know, how do you push yourself through your worst times?
That's a great question. I am now engaged in what I have at times described as one of the most difficult things that I've done. And I'm trying to be a little bit more positive about it. And I stopped talking about it as difficult, but it is kind of difficult. Running for Congress in the United States is a difficult process. And it requires me to do things that are so far out of my comfort zone, I didn't think I can do them. And so there are some things that I have had to learn to do and to learn to do to cope. One of them is to find the joy in every moment, to find the success in failure. So one of the things quite specifically that I have to do is I have to spend a lot of time calling people and asking them for money. And it is not a fun thing, really. But one of the things that I have discovered is that the people I call are very, very interesting themselves. And I have learned to find real pleasure, real joy in calling them, to talk to them and learn from them, to talk about the things they care about and not just ask them for money. And so what was for me the most difficult imaginable task, I could not imagine anything that would be more difficult for me because I'd never done this at all. I was not with any success. And yet now it's something I do hours and hours every week with some real success. I'm still getting better at it. I'm not the best at it by any means, but I have learned unequivocally that I can do the things that I thought were impossible. And I can even learn to find joy in those difficult things. So I want to encourage you to just do the hard things. And I think, this principle that the hard things will become easy is absolutely true. You can get good at doing difficult things, and they become much, much easier.
Right. So we have another question. We have a lot of questions in the chat box right now. So one of the question is, you have mentioned about the idea of adding to profits by adding purpose. Not in the presentation right now, but someone says he's followed your videos and you've mentioned this up there. So the person wants to know if you could elaborate on this idea, firstly. Secondly, how does this stand in a capitalistic environment?
That is a great, great question. And I'm glad you asked. This was actually the topic that I was invited to speak on at the United Nations. And you mentioned, Divya, that I had spoken at the United Nations, and that was a real honor for me. I actually spoke at the United Nations at two different events, but at the big event, the Rotary event, I was asked to speak about adding profit by adding purpose. And the concept that I was talking about is adding more purpose to your business. Now, I think all of you are of an age where you take almost for granted that companies have a social responsibility. You understand that, right? That they have a responsibility to be good to their employees. They have a responsibility to be good to their communities, to be fair to their customers, and to seek out an opportunity to do something beyond all of that. That is not the way business always worked. And businesses don't really always live up to that now. India is unique in the world as far as I know. There are probably other countries that do this, but India is certainly the largest that does this, and one of very few. Again, it's the only one I know of that requires companies to do at least a little bit of corporate social responsibility work, where they demonstrate that a certain amount of their profits go to community efforts. And so you all who are in India see that happening all the time. But even outside of India, this happens now, but it's still a relatively new thing. As I talk to companies that do it, what I learn is that, in fact, they generate more profit after they begin doing this sort of thing well than beforehand. Let me give you an example. There is a company here in Utah called doTERRA that sells essential oils for a variety of purposes around the world. And they source those essential oils from people who grow or harvest wild plants all around the world. And what they discovered very quickly is that sometimes the people who were harvesting these oils or the plants to make the oils were very low-income people. Sometimes they were living in extreme poverty. And so they began to formally work with nonprofit organizations to help those people become more profitable. Now, that would seem at first blush that that would work against the interests of the company, because if of doTERRA, right? Because if the low-income people are making more money, that must come from doTERRA, right? So it would seem like that would work badly for doTERRA. That allowed those low-income communities to begin to thrive. And they have completely changed the nature of that. And then they have helped nonprofit organizations in those communities to bring in better education and provide better schools for the kids in those communities. And so they are changing lives pretty radically. But at the same time, by eliminating the middlemen, they have actually accomplished all of this effort, all of this benefit for low-income people around the world. At the same time, they have improved their own profit margin. So there's a great example, a specific example of how you can help other people in a genuine, impactful way and still create more profits for your own business. And that mindset, if we get that mindset in our work, I think all of us can use business to change the world and do more good.
That's a remarkable answer, Devin. So we have a lot more questions coming up, but due to possibility of time, I think we would have to conclude with this question and answer round. We would have loved to pick up more of the questions from the audience, but only so much could be accommodated, and we extend our apologies for that. Thank you, Devin, for taking out time for us all and for being very patient while answering our questions and answering it so well. Personally speaking, I had a lot of questions and I wish I could chat longer with you. You are just so motivating. You make me want to, know more, listen more, do more. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much, Didi. It's an honor to be with you today. It's really a privilege, and I thank you for the invitation, and Dr. Pandey, thank you to you as well.
Thank you to all the members for being so participative. Interactive sessions are always so fun, and people like you make that happen. If this was a regular seminar where we were present in person, this is the moment I would have called for a huge round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. So before moving further, I would like to invite Rotarian Nishchal Pandey to please share a few words with us.
Good morning, Devin.
Good morning. Thank you. I guess it's good evening to you. It's
yes,
evening there.
I was attending the sessions, but this was one of the finest sessions we had with so much interaction, and we would definitely need you on some other occasion as well. We inspire our youth, especially Rotaractors now, as they are part of our Rotary. And first thing when they planned for this conference, your name came to my mind that you will be the best person and friendliest person to interact with these youngsters. And that will be practical for them to learn so many things. So my heartiest thanks and gratitude for making time out of your busy schedules, and it was so early for you. Still you could get up and made it happen. Well, so my sincere thanks.
Thank you. I am not a morning person, so this was a challenge. But for you, Dr. Pandey, I would do this.
Thank you so much. I am honored. So a lot of learnings to take for these youngsters, and I'm sure if you do good with your heart, you will be successful in all your endeavors, whether it is your business, your profession, anything you venture into. And you should have a purpose, and you should have a kind heart for others who really need your help because they are not fortunate as you are. So if you add a purpose as shared by Devin, I think success is bound to happen to you all, and never to be disheartened by the failures. Success is bound to happen if you keep putting your sincere efforts to your work. So keep doing good work, and hopefully we will have some more occasion where we can have Devin, and our good wishes to him to be elected as member of his parliament, and we would see him more raising voice of people who are not that fortunate, to make them or give them a better world to live. Thank you, Devin, and thank you, Divya, for giving me opportunity.
You're
Thank
welcome,
you.
sir. Thank you for your kind words. Before concluding our today's session, here's a short video clip that we would love for you all to see. It is to also gently remind you to please give a moment to check out our mission statement on our website, which is www.rotaractclubofnoidayouth.org. We are very hopeful of having all of you with us on board, and we could work together in eradicating polio and ensuring that no child in the world suffers disablement due to it. Trust me when I say this, we are this close to eradicating polio, and you can help bring that change, getting on board with us. With this, I take your leave. Smart Witch, our event head, would take it forward. Smart, if you may please proceed.
We are this close.
We are this close to making history.
This close. Of uncertainty. To making history.
This close to changing the world.
This close.
We are this close. This close.
We are this close to making history.
We're this close to ending polio. To making sure no child suffers from this crippling disease ever again. All we need is you.
Good evening, everyone. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledge the contribution of those who worked hard to make this event possible. I would like to thank our patron, Rotarian Alok Gupta, District Governor, RID 3012, Rotarian Nancy Barbie, past District Governor, RID 7730, Rotarian Surendra Mishra, past President of Rotaract Club of Aarambh, RID 3012, Rotarian Dr. Nishchal Pandey, past President of Rotary E-Club of Connect, RID 3012, for being our constant support and our guiding light. I would like to thank Rotarian Devin Thorpe and present a token of appreciation for enlightening us with his inspiring words and making this session a resounding success. I would like to thank the Ikigai coach and soft skill trainers, Mr. Devas Gupta and Ms. Sukhleen Arora, and a corporate lawyer at Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, Mr. Gurkaran S. Arora, for gracing this event with their presence. I would also like to thank our MOC for this event, Ms. Devya, for being an helping hand. In the end, I would like to thank Rotaractor Kumar Karan, the project chair and our pillar of strength, without whom this event would not have been possible, along with our entire organizing committee, who worked so rigorously for this event. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.